Can you really trust someone without fear after being hurt before? I married an American man, but for years I still checked his phone, hesitated to speak my heart, and even struggled to speak English without shame. This is my real story of learning that trust takes time, and how a grocery store argument, my kids' honest questions, and one silent night taught me to finally let go. No perfect marriage, just real healing. Stay for the ending, it changed everything. The question I was afraid to ask. Can you trust without fear? Let me ask you something. Not the polite, how are you, kind of question. The real one. The one you hide from your friends, your family, even your own reflection in the bathroom mirror at 2 a.m. Have you ever loved someone so much that you secretly waited for them to hurt you? I have. I'm sitting here in my living room in a small American town. Outside my window, there's a maple tree that turns fire red every October. My husband, my American husband, is in the kitchen making coffee. Our kids are fighting over a blue crayon upstairs. And on the surface, everything is perfect. But for 3 years, I couldn't breathe. Not because of him. Because of me. You see, I came into this marriage carrying something heavy. Not suitcases. Not immigration papers. Something invisible. Something I didn't even know I was holding until one night, he asked me a simple question. Why do you always say sorry? I was apologizing for leaving a cup on the counter. A cup. And there it was, the truth I had been running from. I didn't trust him. Not really. Not the way you're supposed to trust the person you marry. I loved him. I desired him. I built a life with him. But deep down, a tiny voice kept whispering, he'll leave. They always do. Sound familiar? Maybe you're not married. Maybe you're learning English, and every time you open your mouth, you hear that same whisper, you sound stupid. They're judging you. Just stop. Same whisper. Different story. This video is not a grammar lesson. I won't make you memorize verb tenses or repeat awkward phrases after me. No. This is a real English story, my story, about how a Vietnamese woman who was terrified of being hurt learned to trust an American man. And how, in that process, her English finally stopped being stiff and started being hers. But here's the catch. Trust didn't come fast. It didn't come with a romantic speech or a grand gesture. It came slowly. Awkwardly. Sometimes painfully. And that's exactly why it worked. So if you're here because you're tired of being afraid, afraid to love, afraid to speak, afraid to be seen, then stay. Because by the end of this 90-minute story, I want you to ask yourself the same question I had to ask. Can you trust without fear? And more importantly, what would your life look like if the answer was yes? Let me take you back to the beginning. Not to when I arrived in America, that's a different story for a different day. But to a Tuesday afternoon, about 4 years ago, when my husband did something so small, so ordinary, that it broke me open. We were at the grocery store. Yes, a grocery store. And that's where I learned that trust is not a switch you flip. It's a language you learn. Slowly. Word by word. With a lot of mistakes along the way. But I'm getting ahead of myself. First, you need to understand what was happening inside my head before that grocery store argument. Because whatever you're scared of right now, whether it's speaking English or opening your heart, I promise you, the prison is the same. And the key is also the same. Let me explain. My American husband's first silence. He didn't say, I love you, for 6 months. Let that sink in for a moment. I came from a culture where people say, I love you, like they say, pass the rice. Easily. Often. Sometimes to people they just met. In Vietnam, love is loud. It's shown through words, through constant checking in, through asking, have you eaten yet, 100 times a day. So when I married my American husband, I expected the same. I was wrong. The first few months of our marriage were beautiful and confusing. He opened doors for me. He made breakfast every Sunday. He remembered how I liked my coffee, a little almond milk, no sugar, extra hot. By every measure, he was a wonderful husband. But he almost never said, I love you. I would say it first. I love you, babe. He would smile. Kiss my forehead. And say, nothing. Or sometimes, thank you. Thank you? Who says, thank you, to, I love you? In my head, that was a polite way of saying, I don't love you back. I spiraled. I replayed every conversation. I wondered if I had done something wrong. I wondered if he was regretting marrying me. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I asked him directly, do you actually love me? He looked genuinely confused. Of course I love you. Why would you ask that? Because you never say it. He paused. Then he said something that changed how I understood him, and America, forever. He said, I show you every day. I thought you knew. That's when I realized, we weren't speaking the same love language. Not English versus Vietnamese. But a deeper difference. In his American mind, actions were louder than words. Showing up on time. Fixing the leaky faucet. Listening to my long stories about work even when he was tired. To him, that was love. To me, silence felt like rejection. I want you to understand something important here. This is not about which culture is better. Vietnamese warmth is beautiful. American directness, and sometimes quietness, has its own beauty. The problem wasn't him. The problem wasn't me. The problem was that we both assumed the other person would just know. Sound familiar? Maybe you're learning English right now. And you're frustrated because you study so hard, but when you try to speak, the words come out wrong. Or you freeze. Or people look at you with that polite, confused smile that makes you want to disappear. Here's what I've learned. Frustration often comes from mismatched expectations. You expect yourself to be fluent after 6 months. You expect native speakers to be patient forever. You expect your brain to work like a machine. But your brain is not a machine. It's a muscle that learns through safety, not through pressure. And that's exactly what my husband taught me, without saying a word. Let me tell you about the first time I finally understood his silence. It was a rainy Tuesday. I had a terrible day at my part-time job. My English was failing me. A customer asked a simple question, and I froze. The words were in my head, but they wouldn't come out of my mouth. The customer sighed. My coworker had to step in. I felt like a child. I came home, sat on the couch, and didn't say anything. I was too embarrassed to even cry. My husband walked in from work. He saw my face. He didn't ask, what's wrong, the way I expected. He didn't try to fix it. He just sat next to me. Put his hand on my knee. And waited. For 20 minutes, we sat in silence. Then he got up, made me a cup of tea, brought it to me, and said, tomorrow will be better. That was it. No grand speech. No, I love you. Just presence. And somehow, that felt more like love than any words ever had. I started to understand. For him, love was not a performance. It was not about saying the right thing at the right time. It was about being there. Reliably. Quietly. Every single day. But my fear didn't disappear overnight. Oh no. The voice in my head kept whispering, he's just being nice. Eventually he'll get tired of your broken English. Eventually he'll find someone easier. That voice is a liar. But it sounds so convincing, doesn't it? Here's where the English learning connection comes in, and I promise it's simple. When you're afraid to speak English, you're often waiting for permission. You're waiting for someone to tell you, your English is good enough. You're waiting for the moment when you'll feel ready. But that moment never comes if you're waiting for fear to disappear first. My husband taught me that trust, like language, is built in small, imperfect moments. You don't learn to trust by jumping off a cliff. You learn by taking one tiny step. Then another. Then another. And every time you don't fall, your brain starts to believe, maybe I'm safe. Same with English. You don't become fluent by memorizing 50 words a day. You become fluent by saying one sentence. Then another. Then another. And every time someone understands you, your brain relaxes a little more. But here's the part nobody tells you, you will make mistakes. You will feel stupid. You will want to give up. That's not failure. That's practice. So back to my story. 6 months into our marriage, I finally stopped saying, I love you, first every single day. Not because I gave up. Because I started to see his love in the small things. The way he saved me the last slice of pizza. The way he learned to make pho, badly, but with so much effort. The way he never once made fun of my accent, even when I said sheet instead of seat in front of his boss. One night, out of nowhere, he looked at me and said, I love you. No reason. No special occasion. Just those 3 words. I cried. Again. I cry a lot in this story, get used to it. And I asked him, why now? He said, because I finally know you believe me. That's when I realized, he wasn't holding back love. He was waiting for me to be ready to receive it. So here's my question for you, wherever you are right now, what are you waiting to receive? Are you waiting for permission to speak English badly? Are you waiting for someone to tell you you're enough? Are you waiting for the fear to disappear before you try? Because I've learned something important. The fear doesn't disappear. You just learn to carry it differently. And sometimes, the people who love you are already showing you, quietly, imperfectly, that you're safe. You just have to learn to see it. In section 3, I'm going to tell you about the ugly part. The part where my past trauma snuck into our marriage and almost destroyed it. The phone checking. The late night suspicion. The moment I realized I was becoming the person I was afraid of. But that's for next time. For now, just sit with this. What if silence isn't rejection? What if it's just a different language of love? Why I kept checking his phone. I became the person I was afraid of becoming. Let me tell you something I'm not proud of. For nearly 2 years, I checked my husband's phone. Not once. Not twice. Regularly. Secretly. While he was in the shower. While he was sleeping. While he was playing with our kids in the backyard. I would pick up his phone, my heart pounding, and scroll through his messages. His emails. His call log. I never found anything. Not once. And that somehow made it worse. Because if I had found something, a flirty text, a late-night call, anything, at least my fear would have been right. At least I could say, see? I knew it. But finding nothing meant I had to face the truth. The problem wasn't him. The problem was me. But I couldn't stop. Have you ever done something you knew was wrong, but you did it anyway? Not because you wanted to. Because something inside you was screaming so loudly that the only way to quiet it was to check. Just one more time. Just to be sure. That was me. And the worst part? I knew it was destroying us. Every time I picked up his phone, I was telling myself a story. He can't be trusted. And every time I found nothing, I didn't feel relieved. I felt suspicious. He must be deleting everything. He must be hiding it better. This is what fear does. It turns your brain into a detective looking for evidence of a crime that never happened. Let me back up a little. Before I met my American husband, I had been hurt. Not in small ways. In ways that left scars I didn't even know I had. I had trusted someone completely, and that person left without an explanation. I had given my heart to someone who treated it like a rental, useful for a while, then returned. I thought I had healed. I thought moving to America, getting married, starting a family, I thought all of that meant I was fixed. But here's the truth nobody tells you about healing. It's not a straight line. You can be happy and still be scared. You can be loved and still not believe it. You can look at a perfectly good marriage and still wait for the other shoe to drop. That was me. Every single day. The phone checking started small. One night, he left his phone on the kitchen counter. A notification popped up. A name I didn't recognize. A woman's name. My stomach turned to ice. I told myself, just look. Just see who it is. That's not crazy. That's normal curiosity. So I looked. It was his coworker. Asking about a work schedule. I put the phone down. But the next night, I looked again. And the night after that. And soon, it wasn't just at night. It was every time he left the room. Every time his phone buzzed. Every time he smiled while texting. I became addicted to the checking. Not because I enjoyed it. Because the not knowing felt worse than the knowing. Even if the knowing hurt, at least I would finally understand. At least I could stop guessing. Does any of this sound familiar to you? Maybe you're not checking a phone. Maybe you're checking something else. Maybe you're checking your English every time you speak, waiting for someone to correct you, waiting for proof that you're not good enough. Maybe you're checking your reflection, your bank account, your follower count. Looking for evidence that you're failing before someone else finds it first. That's hypervigilance. It's a fancy word for a simple thing. Your brain is constantly scanning for danger, even when you're safe. And here's what I learned from a therapist I finally went to see, after my husband gently suggested that maybe, just maybe, I needed to talk to someone. She said, your brain learned to survive by expecting the worst. That helped you once. But now, it's hurting you. Think about that. The same brain that protected you in the past is now the prison you live in. I didn't know how to stop. I couldn't just decide to trust. Trust doesn't work like that. Trust is not a light switch. It's more like a broken bone. You can't just will it to heal. You have to set it properly, rest it, and wait. So what did I do? One night, I did something terrifying. I put my husband's phone in his hand. I looked him in the eyes, and I confessed everything. I've been checking your phone. 4 months. I know it's wrong. I don't know why I can't stop. I expected him to be angry. To yell. To say he couldn't trust me anymore. Instead, he sat down. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Thank you for telling me." "Thank you?" He said, "I'm not happy about it. But I understand. You're not a bad person. You're just scared. And scared people do scared things." Then he asked me a question I'll never forget. "What would help you feel safe?" Not what would help you check, what would help you feel safe. I didn't have an answer that night. But over the next few weeks, we figured it out together. He started leaving his phone face up on the table. Not because I asked. Because he wanted to. He started telling me when he was going to be late, even by 5 minutes. He started saying things like, "I'm not going anywhere," not as a promise, just as a fact. And slowly, so slowly I barely noticed, I stopped wanting to check. Not because I had proof. Because I started to believe. Here's the English learning connection, and I promise it's simple. When you're learning a new language, your brain does the same thing mine did. It scans for danger. It looks for evidence that you're failing. It waits for someone to laugh at your accent, to correct your grammar, to look confused when you speak. And every time that happens, or every time you imagine it happening, your brain says, "See? You're not safe. Stop trying." But here's what I learned. Safety is not the absence of risk. Safety is knowing you can survive the risk. You will make mistakes in English. You will be misunderstood. Sometimes, people will be impatient. That's not a sign that you should stop. That's just proof that you're human. The question is not, will I make mistakes? The question is, will I keep going anyway? My husband didn't fix my fear overnight. He just stayed. Consistently. Reliably. Boringly. And that boring consistency, that's what finally convinced my scared brain, oh, maybe this is safe. So if you're learning English right now, and you feel like you're failing, ask yourself, what would help me feel safe? Not perfect. Not fluent. Just safe enough to try. Maybe it's a friend who won't laugh. Maybe it's a YouTube channel that speaks slowly. Maybe it's just telling yourself, it's okay to be bad at this. I'm learning. In section 4, I'm going to tell you about the night I finally broke down completely. Not the quiet cry in the bathroom. The ugly one. The one where my husband saw me at my worst, and didn't run away. But that's for next time. For now, just sit with this. What would you do differently if you believed you were safe? Why your brain hides inside a fake accent. Your brain is not trying to embarrass you. It's trying to protect you. But it's doing a terrible job. Let me explain something strange that happened to me during my first year in America. I had studied English for years in Vietnam. I knew grammar rules. I had memorized vocabulary lists. In my head, I sounded like a movie star. Then I opened my mouth. And a completely different person came out. My voice got higher. My sentences got shorter. My accent, which I thought was pretty good, suddenly felt thick and clumsy. I would say, hello, and people would ask me to repeat it twice. I would order coffee and get tea. I would ask for directions and walk the wrong way for 10 minutes before realizing my mistake. It was humiliating. But here's the weird part. When I was alone, talking to myself in the car or in the shower, my English was fine. Flowing. Almost natural. The moment someone else was listening, my brain would freeze and my mouth would forget how to work. I thought I was just bad at English. Turns out, my brain was doing something much more interesting, and much more frustrating. Let me tell you about a night that changed everything. My husband and I were at a small dinner party with his friends. Americans. Nice people. They spoke slowly for me. They smiled a lot. They asked simple questions like, "How was your day?" and "Do you like living here?" And I couldn't answer any of them properly. Every word felt like lifting a heavy rock. I knew the words. They were right there. But every time I tried to speak, my throat tightened. My face got hot. My brain went blank. So I just smiled and nodded. Said yes, and thank you, and nice to meet you. On the drive home, I cried. My husband asked what was wrong. I said, "I'm stupid. I can't even say one sentence. Everyone thinks I'm dumb." He pulled the car over. He turned to me and said something I didn't understand at first. He said, "You're not stupid. You're scared. And your brain is doing exactly what it's supposed to do when you're scared." Then he explained something that changed how I think about learning English forever. He said, when your brain feels threatened, it goes into survival mode. It shuts down everything that isn't necessary for staying alive. Speaking a second language? Not necessary for survival. So your brain just turns it off. I stared at him. But I'm not in danger. I'm just talking to people. He smiled. Your brain doesn't know the difference between a tiger and a judgmental look. Both feel like danger. That's when I started researching. And he was right. Here's the simple science. I promise I'll keep it fun. Your brain has an alarm system. It's called the amygdala. Think of it as a very anxious security guard whose job is to spot threats. When the amygdala sees something scary, a real threat like a car coming at you, or a social threat like someone frowning at your accent, it sounds the alarm. When that alarm goes off, your brain releases stress hormones. Your heart beats faster. Your breathing changes. And the part of your brain responsible for complex thinking, the prefrontal cortex, basically gets put on hold. That's why you freeze. That's why words disappear. That's why you sound like you've never studied English in your life. Your brain isn't betraying you. It's trying to save you from a threat that doesn't actually exist. But here's the cruel joke. The more you freeze, the more embarrassed you feel. The more embarrassed you feel, the more scared you become of the next conversation. And the more scared you become, the faster your brain hits the alarm. It's a loop. A vicious, exhausting, humiliating loop. And I was stuck in it for years. Not just with English. With my husband too. Every time I wanted to tell him something vulnerable, "I'm scared you'll leave," or "I need more reassurance," or "I don't feel good enough for you," my throat would close up. The words would disappear. And I would say nothing. Or worse, I would say the opposite. I would act cold. Or distant. Or pretend everything was fine. My brain was protecting me from the threat of rejection by making me reject myself first. Sound familiar? Maybe you've done the same thing. Someone asks you a question in English. You know the answer. But your mind goes blank. So you say, "I don't know," or you just stay silent. And later, alone, you think of all the perfect things you could have said. That's not a language problem. That's a fear problem. So how do you break the loop? I learned 3 things. From my husband. From therapy. From embarrassing myself over and over again until I stopped caring so much. First, name the feeling. When you freeze, say to yourself, "Oh, that's just my amygdala. It thinks I'm in danger. I'm not." That tiny moment of awareness creates a gap between the fear and you. And in that gap, you can breathe. Second, lower the stakes. My husband started having no pressure English time with me. 10 minutes a day. I could say anything. Wrong grammar. Weird accent. Made up words. He wouldn't correct me. He wouldn't even react. He just listened. And slowly, my brain learned, oh. Speaking English doesn't always trigger the alarm. Sometimes it's just talking. Third, practice being bad on purpose. This sounds crazy, but it works. One day, I decided to say everything wrong. Purposely. I go store yesterday. She have 2 cat. My husband laughed, not meanly, just surprised. And I laughed too. And for the first time, making mistakes didn't feel like failure. It felt like playing. Here's what I want you to remember. Your brain is not your enemy. It's just overprotective. It learned to keep you safe in a world where being rejected or judged might have meant real danger. But now, in this English conversation, the worst that can happen is someone doesn't understand you. That's not a tiger. That's just a misunderstanding. You can survive that. I did. Thousands of times. And every time I survived, my brain got a little quieter. The alarm got a little softer. The words came a little easier. In section 5, I'm going to tell you about the biggest fight my husband and I ever had. The one where I was so sure he was going to leave that I almost pushed him away myself. And how that fight, not the peaceful moments, taught me the most about trust. But that's for next time. For now, just remember, when you freeze, you're not stupid. You're just scared. And scared can be unlearned. The night I almost pushed him away. I tried to leave before he could leave me. It sounds crazy when I say it out loud. But that night, it made perfect sense in my broken brain. Let me set the scene. It was a Friday evening. Rainy. The kind of rain that makes you want to stay inside and do nothing. My husband had been quiet all day. Not mean quiet. Just distant. He answered my questions with one word. He didn't laugh at my jokes. He ate dinner quickly and then stared at his phone. My fear voice started whispering. He's bored of you. He's planning something. He's going to leave. You should leave first. I had heard this voice before. But that night, it was louder than ever. Because something had happened earlier that week. Something I hadn't told him about. I had lost my part-time job. It wasn't dramatic. The small cafe where I worked part-time was cutting hours. Nothing personal. But in my mind, losing that job meant something much bigger. It meant I wasn't useful anymore. It meant I wasn't contributing. It meant he would realize he could do better. And if he was going to realize that, I needed to leave before he could kick me out. That's the logic of fear. It's not logical at all. So I did something terrible. I packed a bag. Not a big one. Just a small overnight bag with some clothes and my passport. I put it by the front door. Then I went into the living room where he was sitting on the couch. I said, I think I should go stay somewhere else for a few days. He looked up from his phone. Confused. What? Why? I couldn't tell him the real reason. That I was terrified he was going to leave me. That would sound weak. Crazy. So I made up a reason. I need some space, I said. We've been spending too much time together. He stood up. He looked at the bag by the door. Then he looked at me. And his face changed. Not angry. Hurt. You're lying, he said. Something happened. Tell me. I shook my head. Nothing happened. I just need space. He walked over to the bag. Picked it up. And instead of handing it to me, he carried it back to our bedroom and put it in the closet. Then he came back and said, "You're not leaving. Not until you tell me the truth." I started crying. Ugly crying. The kind where you can't breathe and snot runs down your face and you look like a disaster. And then, for the first time, I told him everything. About the job. About the voice in my head. About how I had been waiting for him to realize he made a mistake marrying me. About how I thought leaving first would hurt less than being left. He listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't try to fix it. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. Then he said something I will never forget. "You're not a mistake. And I'm not going anywhere. But you have to stop trying to protect me from a future that doesn't exist." He sat down next to me. He held my hand. And he said, "Here's the deal. You don't have to trust me all at once. Just trust me for today. Tomorrow, we'll do it again. But you don't get to leave because you're scared of something I haven't done." That was the turning point. Not because he convinced me he would never leave. I still had doubts after that night. Lots of them. But because he showed me that my fear didn't scare him away. He didn't run when I was messy. He didn't call me crazy. He just stayed. And staying, consistently, boringly, reliably staying, that's what finally started to heal something in me. Now, here's the English learning connection. And I promise this is the most important part of this whole video. When you're learning English, how many times have you wanted to quit? How many times have you thought, "I'm never going to get this. I sound stupid. Everyone else is better. I should just stop trying before I embarrass myself anymore." That's the same voice. The same fear. The same logic of leaving before you get left. You're not afraid of English. You're afraid of failing at English in front of people. You're afraid of being judged. You're afraid of being seen as less than. And your brain's solution is to quit before you fail. To not try so you don't have to feel the shame of trying and falling short. But here's what my husband taught me that rainy Friday night. Quitting doesn't protect you. It just guarantees the thing you're afraid of. If I had left that night, I would have created the exact thing I was trying to avoid, a broken marriage. If you quit English now, you create the exact thing you're afraid of, never being fluent. The fear tells you to run. But running is just building the prison yourself. So what do you do instead? You do what I did. You stay. Not because you're not scared. Because you're scared and you stay anyway. You say one sentence in English even if it's wrong. You have one conversation even if you freeze halfway through. You watch one more video even if you didn't understand everything. You don't have to be brave forever. Just for today. Just for this moment. My husband and I didn't fix everything that night. The next morning, I still felt shaky. I still wanted to check his phone. I still heard the voice whispering. But I didn't leave. I stayed. And staying, over and over, is what finally made the voice quieter. Same with English. You don't become fluent in one day. You become fluent by not quitting on the days you feel stupid. By staying even when you want to run. Let me tell you one more thing from that night. After I finished crying, my husband made tea. We sat on the couch. He asked me, "What's one small thing I could do to help you feel safer?" I thought about it. Then I said, "Could you just tell me, sometimes, that you're not leaving?" Not because I asked. Just, randomly. He nodded. And he started doing that. In the morning over coffee. Before bed. When I looked worried. He would just say, "I'm not going anywhere." Those 4 words, repeated over months, did more for my healing than any grand romantic gesture ever could. So here's my question for you. What's one small thing you could do today to help yourself feel safer with English? Not become fluent. Just safer. Maybe it's finding a slow-speaking channel like this one. Maybe it's practicing alone in the car. Maybe it's telling a friend, "I'm learning." Please be patient with me. Small things. Repeated over time. That's how trust is built. That's how English is learned. In section 6, I'm going to tell you about my kids. The little humans who accidentally taught me more about trust and language than any adult ever could. And the moment one of them asked me a question that broke my heart and healed it at the same time. But that's for next time. For now, just remember, don't leave before you're left. Stay scared. Stay anyway. When my kids asked, "Why are you scared, Mom?" Out of the mouths of babes. Literally. The thing about children is that they have no filter. None. Zero. They will tell you that you have a pimple on your nose in the middle of a grocery store. They will announce loudly that you forgot to brush your hair. And they will ask the most painful questions at the most unexpected moments, with absolutely no idea that they just stabbed you in the heart. This is exactly what happened one Saturday morning. My daughter was 4 at the time. My son was 2. We were in the living room, and I was trying to teach them both Vietnamese words alongside English. It was important to me that they knew my language. That they could talk to my family back home. That they understood where their mother came from. So I held up a picture of a tree. "K," I said in Vietnamese. "Tree," I said in English. My son repeated, "Tree." Perfect American pronunciation. My daughter looked at the picture. Then she looked at me. Then she asked a question that stopped my heart. "Mommy, why do you sound different when you speak English?" I froze. "What do you mean?" I asked. "You sound like you're scared," she said. "When you speak Vietnamese, you sound like you. When you speak English, you sound like someone else." She was 4. She didn't know she was describing years of fear, shame, and hiding. She was just observing. Like a tiny scientist studying her mother's voice. But she was right. When I spoke Vietnamese, I was confident. Funny. I told stories with different voices. I laughed loudly. I interrupted people. I was me. When I spoke English, I became small. Quiet. Careful. I chose the simplest words. I avoided jokes because I wasn't sure if the timing would work. I said yes, and thank you, and I'm fine even when I wasn't. I had become two different people. And my 4-year-old noticed. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about her question. Why do you sound like you're scared? And then a harder question. What are you teaching your children about fear? Because here's the thing about kids. They don't learn from what you tell them. They learn from what you show them. I was telling my daughter to be brave, to try new things, to speak up for herself. But every day, I was showing her that speaking English, something she would have to do every single day of her life in America, was something to be scared of. I was passing down my fear. That thought made me sick. So I decided to do something uncomfortable. I decided to let my kids see me be bad at English on purpose. The next week, I started speaking English around them the same way I spoke Vietnamese. Loudly. Confidently. Wrong. I made grammar mistakes in front of them. I go to store yesterday. She have 2 apples. My daughter corrected me sometimes. Mommy, it's went. And I said, you're right. Thank you for helping me. I mispronounced words. I said paschetti instead of spaghetti, and my son laughed so hard he fell off his chair. I laughed too. And slowly, something changed. My kids started speaking Vietnamese more. Because they saw me trying. They saw me being brave. They saw me making mistakes and not dying. My husband noticed too. He said, you're different. Lighter. I was. Because I had stopped trying to be perfect. I had stopped trying to hide. I had let my children see the real me, the one who was still learning, still struggling, still growing. Here's what I learned from my 4-year-old daughter that Saturday morning. Fear is loud. But children are louder. And sometimes, the people who love you most are the ones who can see the truth you've been hiding. My daughter didn't know she was doing therapy. She just wanted her mommy to sound like herself in every language. So let me ask you something. Who is watching you learn English? Maybe it's your children. Maybe it's your partner. Maybe it's just yourself in the mirror. But someone is watching. And what you're showing them matters. If you hide, you teach them to hide. If you try and fail and try again, you teach them that trying is what matters. My kids are older now. My daughter is 7. She speaks both languages without thinking. She switches between Vietnamese and English like changing TV channels. And when she hears me make a mistake in English, she doesn't laugh at me. She just says, it's okay, Mommy. You're still learning. That sentence heals something in me every time. Here's the other thing I learned from my kids about trust. Children trust without thinking. My son, when he was 2, would run and jump off the couch, fully believing I would catch him. He didn't check first to see if I was paying attention. He didn't ask for a guarantee. He just jumped. That's what trust looks like before fear teaches you otherwise. I wanted to get back to that. Not blind trust. Not stupid trust. But the kind of trust that says, I believe you'll catch me. And if you don't, I'll survive. My kids taught me that trust is not something you figure out in your head. It's something you practice with your body. You jump. You get caught. You jump again. And every time you get caught, your brain learns, oh, maybe this is safe. Same with English. You don't learn to speak by thinking about speaking. You learn by opening your mouth. By making sounds. By jumping off the couch and trusting that someone, even if that someone is just yourself, will catch you. My kids also taught me something about time. They don't rush. My daughter didn't learn to read overnight. My son didn't learn to walk in a week. They fell. They cried. They tried again. And no one ever said to them, "Why aren't you fluent yet? You've been practicing for months." We give children time. We give them patience. We celebrate small progress. But we don't give that same grace to ourselves. So here's what I want you to do. Think of yourself as a child learning English for the first time. Not a broken adult who should already know better. Just a beginner. Someone who is allowed to make mistakes. Someone who is allowed to sound different. Someone who is allowed to be scared and try anyway. That's what my kids gave me. Permission to be a beginner again. In section 7, I'm going to tell you about the biggest fight my husband and I ever had about money. And how that fight, not the romantic moments, taught me the final piece of trusting without fear. But that's for next time. For now, just remember, the people who love you don't need you to be perfect. They just need you to be real. Trust is not a light switch. You can't just decide to trust. That's not how brains work. I wish someone had told me this earlier. Would have saved me years of feeling broken. Let me tell you about the money fight. It was a Sunday afternoon. My husband and I were looking at our bank account, something we did together every month because he believed in transparency. He wanted me to feel equal. In control. Not dependent. But every time I saw the numbers, my stomach dropped. Not because we were poor. We were fine. Comfortable, even. But because in my mind, money equaled safety. And if the number wasn't growing fast enough, that meant danger. That Sunday, I saw that we had spent more than usual on eating out. Nothing crazy. A few extra pizzas. Some coffee runs. Normal American life. But my fear voice went wild. You're wasting his money. You're not contributing. He's going to resent you. He's going to leave. I didn't say any of this out loud. Instead, I got quiet. Then cold. Then I made a passive-aggressive comment about how maybe I should just stop buying anything at all. My husband looked at me. He knew the pattern by now. What's really going on? He asked. Nothing, I lied. He sighed. Not an angry sigh. A tired one. We've been married for years. You still don't trust that we're okay? Those words hit me like a punch. Because he was right. I didn't trust. Not fully. I had made so much progress. I had stopped checking his phone. I had started speaking English more freely. I had even stopped packing my bag by the door. But deep down, underneath all the progress, there was still a tiny voice whispering, "This won't last. Don't get too comfortable." That's when my husband said something that changed everything. He said, "Trust is not a light switch. You can't just turn it on because you want to. You have to build it. And building takes time. I'm not mad that you're not there yet. I'm just sad that you're still carrying this alone." Then he asked me a question that made me think differently about everything. What would it look like if you trusted me 1% more than you did yesterday? Not all the way. Just 1%. I didn't have an answer right away. But I thought about it. And over the next few weeks, I started paying attention to what that 1% looked like. 1% was not asking where he was going when he left the house. 1% was believing him when he said he was just tired, not angry. 1% was not replaying every conversation to find hidden meanings. Small. Tiny, even. But it added up. Here's the science part, and I promise it's simple and fun. Your brain has something called neural pathways. Think of them like trails in a forest. The more you walk a trail, the wider and easier it gets. The less you walk it, the more it grows over. Fear is a well-worn trail in your brain. You've walked it thousands of times. It's wide. It's easy. Your brain can run down that trail in milliseconds. Trust is a new trail. Overgrown. Hard to find. Every time you choose trust instead of fear, you are literally hacking through bushes to create a new path. It's slow. It's exhausting. The first 100 times, it's easier to just take the fear trail. But every time you choose trust, even 1% more than yesterday, you make that new trail a little wider. A little easier. Until one day, without even noticing, the trust trail becomes the default. That's what my husband was asking me to do. Not to leap from the fear trail to the trust trail overnight. Just to take one step. Then another. Then another. Same with English. Your brain has a well-worn trail for your native language. It's smooth. Fast. Automatic. English is a new trail. Overgrown. Awkward. Every time you speak, your brain has to work hard to find the path. That's why you're slow. That's why you make mistakes. That's why it's exhausting. But every time you speak, even badly, you are widening that trail. Every mistake is not a failure. It's a step. Every awkward conversation is not embarrassment. It's practice. You don't become fluent by being perfect. You become fluent by walking the English trail so many times that it becomes the easy path. So back to the money fight. After that conversation, I didn't magically trust my husband with money. But I started doing small things. I stopped checking the bank account every day. I let him pay for things without mentally calculating if I deserved it. I bought myself a coffee without asking permission first, something I had never done in our entire marriage. The first time I did it, my hands shook. I felt guilty. I expected him to be angry. He wasn't. He didn't even notice. Because normal people don't think about coffee the way scared people think about coffee. And slowly, over months, the guilt faded. The shaking stopped. Buying a coffee became just buying a coffee, not a test of whether I deserved to exist. Here's what I learned. Fear makes everything a test. Every conversation. Every purchase. Every moment of silence. Your brain is constantly asking, am I safe? Am I loved? Am I enough? Trust is when the questions get quieter. Not gone. Just quieter. And quiet enough is good enough. My husband and I didn't fix everything that Sunday. We still have moments. I still have days when the voice whispers. But now I know what it is. And I know how to respond. I don't say, you're right, I should be scared. I say, I hear you. But I'm choosing trust today. Just 1% more. In section 8, I'm going to tell you about the night I finally cried in front of my husband, not the quiet, bathroom cry. The real one. The one where I admitted everything I had been hiding. And how that ugly, messy moment became the most healing moment of our marriage. But that's for next time. For now, just remember, you don't have to trust all the way. Just 1% more than yesterday. That's how trails are made. The night I finally cried in front of him. Not the bathroom cry. The real one. I need to tell you something I've never admitted on camera before. For years, I cried alone. Every time I felt overwhelmed, every time the fear got too loud. Every time I wanted to scream, I don't know how to do this, I waited until I was alone. Then I cried in the bathroom. Or in the car. Or in the shower with the water running so no one could hear. I thought I was protecting my husband from my mess. I thought strong wives don't fall apart. I thought if he saw how broken I really was, he would finally leave. So I hid. Perfectly. For years. Until one night, I couldn't anymore. It was a Tuesday. Nothing special. The kids were asleep. My husband was reading on the couch. I was washing dishes. And then, for no reason at all, I started crying. Not the pretty kind. The kind where your face scrunches up and you can't breathe and you make sounds you didn't know you could make. He looked up. Put his book down. Walked over to me. And I tried to stop. I tried to say, I'm fine. I tried to laugh it off. But the words wouldn't come. Because for the first time, my body was done pretending. So I just stood there, in the middle of the kitchen, sobbing like a child. He didn't say, what's wrong? He didn't try to fix it. He just wrapped his arms around me and held me while I soaked his shirt with tears and snot. I don't know how long we stood there. 5 minutes. 10. Forever. When I finally stopped, he led me to the couch. He sat down next to me. And he said something I will carry to my grave. Tell me everything. Not the clean version. The real one. So I did. I told him about the voice in my head. The one that said I wasn't good enough. The one that said he would leave. The one that said my English was embarrassing and my past made me damaged and my fear made me unlovable. I told him about the checking. The packing. The pretending. I told him that even on our best days, a part of me was waiting for disaster. And then I told him the thing I had never told anyone. I don't know how to trust without waiting to be hurt. I've never done it. I don't know if I can. He was quiet for a long time. Then he took my face in his hands and looked me in the eyes. You're not broken. You're just learning. And learning takes time. I'm not going anywhere. Not because you're perfect. Because you're mine. I cried again. Of course I did. But this time, it was different. This time, I wasn't crying alone. And I wasn't crying from shame. I was crying because someone had finally seen all of me, the ugly, scared, messy parts, and didn't run away. That night changed something fundamental in me. Not because my husband fixed me. He didn't. He can't. No one can fix another person. But because he gave me permission to stop pretending. Permission to be scared out loud. Permission to say, I don't know how to do this, without immediately following it with, but I'll figure it out. Here's what I learned that night. Fear grows in the dark. The moment you shine a light on it, by saying it out loud, by letting someone see it, it starts to shrink. I had been carrying this weight alone for years because I thought sharing it would make me weak. But the opposite was true. Sharing it was the strongest thing I ever did. And my husband? He didn't see me as weak. He saw me as human. And he loved me more, not less. Now, here's the English learning connection. And I promise this is important. How many times have you hidden your English struggles? How many times have you pretended to understand when you didn't? How many times have you said, I'm fine, when you wanted to say, can you please repeat that slower? You're doing the same thing I did. You're crying alone in the bathroom of your own mind. You're pretending to be okay because you're afraid that if people see how hard it is, they'll judge you. Or laugh. Or give up on you. But here's the truth. Every single person who has ever learned a second language has felt exactly what you're feeling. The frustration. The embarrassment. The exhaustion. The voice that says, you'll never get this. You're not alone. You're not broken. You're just learning. And learning is messy. What if you stopped hiding? What if you let someone see you struggle? What if you said out loud, this is hard for me. Can you help? I know that's terrifying. I know because I did it. And it was the scariest thing I've ever done. But it was also the thing that finally let me heal. After that night in the kitchen, I started being honest with my husband about my English too. Not just my fear. But the actual struggle. I don't understand this word. Can you say that again? I know how to say this in my head but my mouth won't do it. Every time I admitted the struggle, he didn't laugh. He didn't get impatient. He just said, okay, and helped. Because that's what people do when you let them in. The same is true for you. The people worth speaking to, the ones who matter, will not judge you for struggling. They will respect you for trying. And the ones who do judge you? They don't matter. Their opinion is not your problem. So here's my challenge to you. Find one person. Just one. And tell them the truth about your English. Not the, I'm fine, version. The real one. I'm scared to speak. I feel stupid when I make mistakes. I've been trying for years and I still freeze. Say it out loud. Let someone see you. I promise you, the world will not end. The sun will rise tomorrow. And you will feel lighter. Because fear grows in the dark. And you just turned on the light. That night in my kitchen didn't fix everything overnight. I still had bad days. I still heard the voice. But the voice got quieter. Because I wasn't fighting it alone anymore. My husband didn't have the answers. He just had his presence. And sometimes, presence is enough. In section 9, I'm going to tell you about how my English finally started to improve, not when I tried harder, but when I stopped trying so hard. And the weird way that trust and language grew together, like two vines on the same tree. But that's for next time. For now, just remember, you don't have to cry alone. You don't have to learn alone. Let someone see you. That's where the healing starts. From fear to freedom, my English improved too. The weird thing about stopping trying so hard. Here's something nobody told me about learning English. The more I pushed, the less I learned. The more I tried to be perfect, the worse I sounded. The more I practiced grammar drills and memorized vocabulary lists and forced myself to speak without mistakes, the more my brain froze. It didn't make sense. Shouldn't more effort equal better results? But that's not how brains work. And I learned this lesson not from a textbook, but from my own messy, imperfect journey of learning to trust my husband. Let me explain. After that night in the kitchen, the ugly cry night, something shifted inside me. Not dramatically. Not overnight. But slowly, like the sun coming up on a foggy morning. I stopped trying so hard to be a perfect wife. I stopped trying so hard to be a perfect English speaker. I just stopped. And when I stopped, something weird happened. My English got better. Not because I studied more. Not because I took a class, but because I finally relaxed. And when you relax, your brain stops setting off the alarm. And when the alarm is quiet, the words can come out. Let me give you a specific example. For years, I couldn't say the word refrigerator. Every time I tried, it came out wrong. Refrigerator. Refrigerator. The cold box thing. I would avoid the word entirely. I would say, the big white thing in the kitchen where we keep food. Ridiculous. But after I stopped being scared of being imperfect, I started saying, refrigerator, wrong on purpose. I would say it slowly. Badly. I would laugh at myself. My husband would laugh too, not meanly, just with me. And then one day, without even noticing, I said it correctly. Refrigerator. Clean. Clear. Like I had been saying it my whole life. I didn't force it. I just let it happen. Here's the science behind this, and I promise it's simple and fun. Your brain has two modes, learning mode and survival mode. You cannot be in both at the same time. When you're scared, you're in survival mode. Your brain is focused on one thing, keeping you alive. Learning a new language is not a survival priority. So your brain shuts down the learning centers and redirects all energy to scanning for danger. When you're relaxed, you're in learning mode. Your brain opens up. It becomes curious. It's willing to make mistakes because mistakes are how it learns. All those years I was trying so hard, I was actually making it harder for myself. Because my effort was coming from fear. And fear keeps you in survival mode. And survival mode blocks learning. The moment I stopped trying so hard, the moment I gave myself permission to be bad at English, my brain finally switched into learning mode. And that's when the real progress began. The same thing happened with trust. For years, I tried so hard to trust my husband. I would tell myself, trust him. Just trust him. Why can't you trust him? I would force myself to not check his phone. I would force myself to not ask where he was going. I would force myself to not pack my bag. But forcing doesn't work. Because trust, like language, cannot be forced. It has to grow. The more I tried to force trust, the more anxious I became. The more anxious I became, the less I trusted. It was a vicious loop. But when I stopped trying so hard, when I accepted that I was scared and that was okay, something shifted. I stopped forcing myself to trust. I just started noticing when I didn't trust. And I would say to myself, oh, there's that fear again. Hi, fear. I see you. And then I would do nothing. I wouldn't try to fix it. I wouldn't try to push it away. I would just let it be there. And slowly, the fear got quieter. Not because I fought it. Because I stopped fighting. Here's what I want you to understand. What you resist persists. What you accept can change. If you fight your fear of speaking English, it gets stronger. If you accept it, okay, I'm scared. That's fine. I'm going to speak anyway, the fear loses its power. If you fight your mistakes, they haunt you. If you accept them, yep, I said that wrong. That's how learning works, they become information, not judgment. My English improved when I stopped trying to be good and started allowing myself to be bad. When I stopped caring if my accent was weird. When I stopped apologizing for my grammar. And the weirdest part? The more I stopped caring, the better I got. Because I was finally letting my brain do what it does best, learn through repetition, through play, through rest. So here's my practical advice for you. No grammar drills. No vocabulary lists. Just 3 small changes that changed everything for me. 1. Stop apologizing for your English. Every time you say, "Sorry for my bad English," you are telling your brain, "This is dangerous. I should be ashamed." Stop. Just speak. You don't owe anyone perfect English. You owe yourself the chance to try. 2. Make mistakes on purpose. Pick a word you always say wrong. Say it wrong 10 times in a row. Laugh at yourself. Then say it right. Your brain learns faster when it's having fun. Mistakes are not failures. They're data. 3. Find your safe person or safe space. For me, it was my husband. For you, it might be a friend, a YouTube channel, or just yourself in the car. Speak English in a place where no one will judge you. Let your mouth make the sounds without fear. That's where fluency begins. My journey from fear to trust and from broken English to real English happened at the same time. Because they are the same skill. The skill of being okay with not being okay. The skill of trying when you might fail. The skill of showing up as you are, not as you wish you were. I'm not fluent. I still make mistakes. I still have an accent. I still freeze sometimes. But I don't hide anymore. And that's the difference. In section 10, I'm going to tell you what living in America taught me about love, the real lessons, not the movie versions. And how the culture here, with all its quirks, helped me heal in ways I never expected. But that's for next time. For now, just remember, stop trying so hard. Relax. Your brain knows what to do. Get out of its way. What living in America taught me about love. Not the movie version. The real one. Before I moved to America, I thought I knew what love looked like. I had watched hundreds of American movies. You know the ones. The guy runs through the airport to stop the girl from leaving. He holds a boombox outside her window. He says something perfectly romantic at exactly the right moment. I thought love was loud. Dramatic. Certain. Then I married an American man and realized, the movies lied. Not completely. But in ways that mattered. Let me tell you what living in America actually taught me about love. Not the Hollywood version. The grocery store version. The Tuesday night version. The real one. Lesson 1, love is boring. And that's a good thing. My husband doesn't run through airports. He doesn't make grand speeches. But every single morning, he makes me coffee. Not because I ask. Because he knows I like waking up to the smell. For the first year, I didn't notice this. I was too busy waiting for the dramatic gesture. The proof that he loved me. But then I started paying attention. The coffee. The way he saved me the last cookie. The way he texted me home safe every time he arrived somewhere. Boring. Repetitive. Predictable. And that's exactly what healed me. Because drama is exciting, but drama is also scary. You never know what's coming next. Boring is safe. Boring is reliable. Boring is someone showing up every single day, not because it's exciting, but because they chose to. And my fear brain needed consistency more than it needed excitement. Lesson 2, directness is not cruelty. In my culture, we often hint. We don't say what we mean directly because we don't want to hurt feelings. We say, maybe later, when we mean no. We say, "I'll think about it," when we mean absolutely not. Americans are different. They say what they mean. My husband told me directly when he was tired, when he needed space, when something I did bothered him. At first, I thought he was being mean. In my head, directness equaled anger. But over time, I learned something beautiful. Directness is actually kindness. Because when someone tells you exactly what they need, you don't have to guess. You don't have to worry. You don't have to read between the lines. My husband taught me that, "I need some quiet time," doesn't mean, "I don't love you." It means exactly what it says. He needs quiet time. Living in America taught me to trust words. To believe what people say. To stop searching for hidden meanings that aren't there. And guess what? That helped my English too. Because I stopped overthinking every conversation. I started taking people at their word. And my brain relaxed. Lesson 3, Personal space is not rejection. This one was hard for me. In my culture, closeness means love. We stand close. We touch often. We check on each other constantly. Americans value personal space. My husband needs time alone. He needs physical space sometimes. He doesn't want to talk about his feelings every single night. My fear brain interpreted this as rejection. He doesn't want to be near me. He's pulling away. He's going to leave. But here's what I learned. Personal space is not rejection. It's just space. Some people need it to recharge. It doesn't mean they love you less. It means they love you in a different way. Once I understood this, I stopped panicking every time he went to read in the other room. I stopped asking, "What's wrong?" every time he was quiet. I learned to give space without fear. And the crazy thing? The more space I gave him, the closer he wanted to be. Because he didn't feel smothered. He felt respected. Lesson 4, I feel, statements save marriages. Americans love, "I feel," statements. I feel frustrated when you leave your shoes in the hallway. I feel hurt when you don't ask about my day. At first, I thought this was weird. Just say what you mean. But then I realized the genius of it. When you say, "You always leave your shoes in the hallway," the other person gets defensive. They hear an accusation. When you say, "I feel frustrated when shoes are in the hallway," you're not attacking them. You're sharing your experience. They can't argue with your feelings. My husband taught me this. And it changed how we fought. Instead of blaming each other, we started sharing our feelings. The fights got shorter. The healing got faster. Living in America taught me that love is not about never fighting. It's about fighting well. Lesson 5, you can't earn love. You can only receive it. This was the hardest lesson. And the most important. In my culture, love often feels conditional. If you're good, you get love. If you work hard, you get love. If you sacrifice, you get love. I brought this into my marriage. I thought I had to earn my husband's love. By being a perfect wife. By having perfect English. By never making mistakes. But Americans, at least the good ones, don't love that way. They love you for who you are, not for what you do. My husband didn't love me because I was useful. He loved me because I was me. The scared, messy, imperfect me. And that was the most healing thing of all. Living in America taught me that love is not a transaction. It's a gift. You don't earn it. You just receive it. And then you give it back, not because you have to, but because you want to. I'm not saying America is perfect. Every culture has its strengths and weaknesses. But for me, a woman who was terrified of trusting, American-style love, the boring, direct, space-respecting, feeling-sharing, unearned kind, was exactly what I needed. It didn't happen overnight. I had to unlearn old patterns. I had to stop interpreting directness as cruelty and space as rejection. I had to learn to receive love without earning it. But I did. Slowly. Awkwardly. With many mistakes along the way. And my English improved alongside my trust. Because when you stop being afraid of people, you stop being afraid of their language. When you learn to receive love, you learn to receive words. When you stop trying to be perfect, you start being real. In section 11, I'm going to answer the question from the title of this video. The one I've been dancing around for 10 sections. Can you trust without fear? I have an answer now. But it's probably not what you expect. That's for next time. For now, just remember, love is not a movie. It's coffee every morning. It's space without rejection. It's direct words without cruelty. And it's a gift you don't have to earn. Can you trust without fear? My answer now. The question I've been avoiding for 10 sections. Here it is. The question from the title. The one you clicked on this video to hear answered. Can you trust without fear? I've spent the last 10 sections telling you my story. The phone checking. The grocery store meltdown. The night I packed a bag. The ugly cry in the kitchen. The kids who saw through me. The slow, boring, painful process of learning to let someone in. And now, finally, I owe you an answer. But here's the thing. The answer is not what I expected. And it's probably not what you expected either. Because after all of this, after years of therapy, after hundreds of conversations with my husband, after all the progress I've made, I still feel fear. Yes. Still. Not every day. Not the way I used to. But it's there. Sometimes loud. Sometimes just a whisper. But present. So if you were hoping I would say, yes. I trust completely. I never feel afraid anymore. I'm sorry. That's not my story. But here's what I can say. I trust even when I'm afraid. That's the difference. That's everything. Let me explain. Before, fear controlled me. When I felt afraid, I acted afraid. I checked phones. I packed bags. I hid in the bathroom. I pushed him away before he could push me. Fear was the driver. I was just along for the ride. Now, fear is still in the car. But I'm driving. I feel the fear. I acknowledge it. I say, hi, fear. I see you there in the passenger seat. And then I make a choice. I choose to trust anyway. Not because the fear is gone. Because I've learned that fear is not a good driver. Fear wants to crash the car. Fear wants to isolate me. Fear wants to destroy the good things in my life. So I don't let fear drive anymore. My husband taught me this. Not with words. With years of showing up. With boring consistency. With staying when I tried to leave. With loving me when I was unlovable. He didn't eliminate my fear. He just gave me enough evidence to act against it. Here's a metaphor that helps me. Think of your brain like a house. Fear lives in the basement. It's loud. It bangs on the pipes. It wants you to believe the whole house is on fire. But you don't have to go down to the basement. You can stay upstairs, in the living room, with the people you love. You can hear the banging. You can know it's there. But you don't have to respond to it. That's what trust without fear looks like for me. Not silence in the basement. Just choosing to stay upstairs anyway. So back to the question, can you trust without fear? My answer is yes. But not the way I thought. You can trust without being controlled by fear. You can trust while still feeling afraid. You can trust as a choice, not as a feeling. And that's actually more powerful than having no fear at all. Because if you had no fear, trust wouldn't be brave. It would just be automatic. But when you choose to trust even though you're scared, that's courage. That's strength. That's real. Here's what this looks like in my daily life. Last week, my husband went on a business trip. 3 days. 2 nights. In the past, this would have destroyed me. I would have checked his location constantly. I would have called him 10 times a day. I would have imagined every possible disaster. I still felt the fear this time. When he drove away, my stomach dropped. The voice whispered, what if he doesn't come back? What if something happens? What if this is the beginning of the end? But I didn't act on the fear. I said to myself, I hear you. But I'm choosing to trust. He has never given me a reason not to. So I'm going to believe that he loves me and that he will come home. He came home. Of course he did. And each time I choose trust and nothing bad happens, the fear gets a little quieter. The trail gets a little wider. The choice gets a little easier. Same with English. Last month, I had to give a presentation at my kids' school. In English. In front of other parents. Native speakers. The old me would have said no. Would have made an excuse. Would have hidden. I was terrified. My hands shook. My throat tightened. The voice said, you're going to embarrass yourself. Everyone will hear your accent. They'll think you're stupid. But I did it anyway. I said yes to the fear. I prepared my notes. I practiced in the car. And then I stood up in front of those parents and I spoke. Was my English perfect? No. Did I make mistakes? Yes. Did I freeze for 3 seconds in the middle? Absolutely. But I finished. People understood me. A few parents came up to me afterward and said, great job. One mom said, I admire you for doing that in your second language. I didn't die. The world didn't end. And the next time I have to speak in public, it will still be scary. But I'll do it anyway. That's trust without fear. Not the absence of fear. The choice to act despite it. So here's my real answer to the question. You cannot eliminate fear. Fear is part of being human. It protected your ancestors from tigers. It's trying to protect you now. But you can change your relationship with fear. You can stop letting it drive. You can feel it and still choose trust. You can be scared and still speak. You can be afraid and still love. That's what my American husband taught me. Not that trust is easy. That trust is worth the fear. And that's what I want to leave with you today. Whether you're scared of trusting someone or scared of speaking English, the answer is the same. Don't wait for the fear to disappear. It won't. Act anyway. Speak anyway. Love anyway. The fear will be there. But so will you. And over time, the fear will get quieter. Not because you fought it. Because you proved it wrong, over and over, by showing up. In section 12, the final section, I'm going to give you 5 concrete things you can do starting today. Not theory. Not inspiration. Actionable steps that helped me and can help you too. But that's for next time. For now, just remember, you don't need to be fearless. You just need to be brave enough to try one more time. Your fear is a liar, here's proof. 5 things I wish someone had told me years ago. We made it. 12 sections. A whole story. From a terrified woman checking phones in the bathroom to someone who can finally say, fear is here, but I'm driving now. But I don't want to just leave you with inspiration. Inspiration fades. What lasts are small, repeatable actions. So this final section is different. No long stories. Just 5 concrete things you can do starting today. 5 lessons I learned the hard way, so you don't have to. Each one comes from my journey. Each one applies to both trust and English. Because they're the same muscle. Let's go. 1. Name the liar. Fear speaks in you statements. You're going to fail. You sound stupid. He's going to leave. They're laughing at you. Here's what I learned, that voice is not the truth. It's a liar wearing a truth costume. So every time you hear that voice, do this. Say out loud, that's my fear talking. That's not reality. That's it. Just name it. When you name the liar, you take away some of its power. You separate yourself from the fear. You become the observer, not the victim. I still do this. This morning, before recording this video, I heard, your English is not good enough for YouTube. People will make fun of you. I said, that's my fear talking. I'm going to record anyway. Try it. Today. The next time you freeze before speaking English, say, that's just fear. Not truth. See what happens. 2. Lower the bar to the floor. Perfectionism is fear's best friend. The more you demand perfection, the more reasons fear has to stop you. So here's what I did. I lowered the bar. All the way to the floor. My goal was not speak perfect English. My goal was say one sentence. That's it. One sentence. Even if it was wrong. Even if my accent was thick. Even if I had to repeat it 3 times. When the bar is on the floor, you cannot fail. And when you cannot fail, fear has nothing to hold on to. Same with trust. My goal was not, trust him completely. My goal was, don't check his phone for 1 hour. Then 1 day. Then 1 week. Small wins. Tiny victories. They add up. So ask yourself, what is the smallest, easiest version of your goal? Do that. Not the big scary version. The tiny ridiculous version. Say 1 word. Send 1 text. Speak for 5 seconds. Then celebrate. You did it. Tomorrow, do it again. 3. Collect evidence like a detective. Fear has a confirmation bias. It only notices the things that prove it right. You make 1 mistake, fear says, see? I told you. You have 10 good conversations, fear ignores them. So you have to become a detective. On purpose. Every day, write down or just notice one piece of evidence that fear is wrong. Someone understood you today. You said a word correctly. Your husband came home on time. You had a conversation without freezing. Collect this evidence. Keep it somewhere. When fear gets loud, read it back. I have a note on my phone called "Fear is Wrong." It has hundreds of entries. March 3rd, ordered coffee without help. June 12th, he said I love you first. October 20th, gave a presentation and didn't die. When I feel the fear creeping back, I read that note. And I remember, fear is a liar. I have proof. Start your own note today. Write down one thing. Just one. Then add to it tomorrow. 4. Find your witness. Remember the night I cried in the kitchen? The healing didn't come from my husband fixing me. It came from him witnessing me. You need someone who can sit with you in your fear without trying to solve it. A friend. A partner. A therapist. Even an online community. Tell them, I'm scared of speaking English. I don't need you to fix it. I just need you to know. That's it. Just being seen lowers the fear. Because fear grows in isolation. In the light, it shrinks. If you don't have a person, use this video. I'm your witness now. I see you. I know how hard this is. And I'm telling you, you're not broken. You're just learning. But try to find someone. Send a message today. I'm struggling with something. Can I tell you about it? You'll be surprised how many people say yes. 5. Separate the feeling from the action. This is the most important one. The one that changed everything for me. Feelings are not commands. You can feel scared and still speak. You can feel unworthy and still receive love. You can feel like giving up and still take one more step. Feelings are weather. They pass. Actions are choices. They create change. So when fear says, you can't, you say, I feel scared, but I'm going to try anyway. When fear says, he'll leave, you say, I feel anxious, but I'm choosing to stay. When fear says, you're not ready, you say, I feel unprepared, but I'm going to open my mouth anyway. This is not about being tough. It's about being honest. You don't pretend the fear isn't there. You just don't let it make the decisions. Practice this today. Feel the fear. Then do the thing anyway. Even if it's tiny. Even if you do it badly. Just separate the feeling from the action. One last thing. I'm not special. I'm not braver than you. I'm just someone who got tired of being controlled by a liar. And I decided, one small step at a time, to take the wheel back. You can too. Not overnight. Not perfectly. But today. Right now. You can do one thing. Name the liar. Lower the bar. Collect evidence. Find a witness. Separate feeling from action. Pick one. Just one. Do it today. And tomorrow, do it again. That's how trust is built. That's how English is learned. That's how fear loses its grip. The end of my story, and the beginning of yours. My American husband didn't save me. He just stayed. And staying gave me the safety to save myself. Your story might look different. Different country. Different language. Different fears. But the truth is the same, fear is a liar. You can trust without being fearless. You can speak without being perfect. You can love without being certain. You just have to start. One small step. Today. Thank you for staying with me through all 12 sections. Thank you for letting me share my real story. If even one person feels less alone after watching this, it was worth every word. So here we are. End of this story. But honestly, your story is just beginning. You just watched 90 minutes of my real life, the fear, the phone checking, the grocery store tears, the slow, boring, beautiful process of learning to trust an American man while learning to trust myself in English. But here's what I didn't tell you yet. There's a second part to this story. Something happened last year that almost broke everything we built. A challenge I never saw coming. And the way we survived it? It will change how you think about love, language, and fear forever. I'm saving that for the next video. So if you want to know what nearly destroyed my marriage after I learned to trust, and the one sentence my husband said that pulled us back from the edge, you need to be here when I release it. Click subscribe right now. Hit the bell icon. Because YouTube doesn't always show you new videos anymore. But I will show up. Every week. With real stories. Slow English. And no fake perfection. Also, comment one word below, trust if you're ready to stop letting fear drive. I read every comment. And I'll reply to as many as I can. See you in the next story. Same channel. Same messy, beautiful, real life. Your fear is a liar. But you already knew that.